And of course, the mech was on mute. That's fine. Don't worry about it. So today, what we're going to do, we're going to work on getting and doing some modifications to an existing build that I made, which is the Nezha Prime. We're going to change the chest area from using the cockpit to working on having an integrated look. It would be easier for people to make this build. And again, if you join today on the chat, just send me a DM, and I'll be giving you the instructions that I made for this build. So you'll be able to have this, and once you, together with this video, you'll be able to make modifications to the build. So if you don't have the cockpit, you'll be able to make the build. Okay? So we'll start working. First, few things. I made changes to the lighting. I added more lights to the building area, and some lights to the background. And I also brought most of my pieces with me. So it would be fun to work on building things from now on. Let's get started on it, right? Okay, so first, honestly, it looks much better than last time, and I added lights on the top, on both sides, plus a ring of light on the top. So now you can see that it has more light. Okay, so first things first, let's disassemble it and see it. This is how I usually work with builds that I already have made. The idea would be just to try and take apart the pieces that you want to keep. For example, so I want to keep the legs, the arms, and the head, right? So first things first, take out the head completely, and again take the arms. Since they are attached with a single ball joint, they would be easier to take out. Just be careful not to take everything apart. And also take the other side. Okay, this one was a bit tougher. This one in particular, I want to put here. Yeah, that's good. This way. Hi, Big Cortana, how are you? So the next step would be taking the legs apart. This one can be a bit trickier because usually you cover parts of the leg to work on things. So, okay, the leg is out. Again, you would take the pieces that would give you trouble when taking it out, and then carefully take the leg apart. This uses the big ball joints, so it might be trickier to remove them without breaking it. Okay? What I'm keeping intact the legs, and the arms, and the head. So I'm only going to work on the core. You can see it's a pretty complicated core, and what I'm trying to do with this is to give most of the shapes that you can see on the drawing next to the stream, right? And ideally, I worked a ton to get like the white, it's not an armor, the clothes that's over the shoulder. Okay, sure. Hi, Smitty. Question, do you hear me fine? Is the music correct? The volumes are okay? As I said at the start of the stream, I added more lights, like specifically one bigger light to this side. So this is why this side is much brighter. As you can see, so now I have 3 lights at the top. I think it looks better. I also added some white lights to the buildings I have at the background. I'm still working on perhaps getting some LED lights to put on the top, so I can have lights from the top and the bottom. Right now it just gives shadows, but it gives shape to this. It works. I also brought most of my pieces. I have this, but I also have like 2 two of this at the bottom. So I'll be probably reaching out to the back to get more pieces. But those are changes that I'm gonna be constantly changing during this process. Okay, so let's get and keep continuing to do this. Okay, what I was showing is the core. So the core itself is pretty interesting. It has, as it is right now, you can see it has the, let me take this part so you can see it much better. It's the main cockpit with a ratchet join, a simple ratchet join. This part here doesn't have that much friction, and I'll show you that in a minute. But after that, it's all decoration and how to give shape similar to the drawing that's next. Welcome, joint fourth. Welcome to the stream. Okay, so first, let's take this apart and see what we can keep and what we can change, and what's going to be needed when we modify this whole thing. So first, the chest piece. We might have to keep this because it keeps, this particular has some different shapes that I want to take when considering the main building, right? So right now it does this, right? And this gives the closed aspect that it has at the top. So I might want to end up keeping this part as it is. So I'll take it here. Again, much of this is going to be touch and go. We'll be modifying as we go, which is usually one of the things is the reason why I didn't want to touch or modify anything before the stream. I want to show you how I do it from scratch. I made this small build here so that it could have like a red build at the sides, and it didn't show the gray part, as the entire chest build of the drawing is red. And it also has some light, I think this is green on my end. My wife always fights with me and says this is blue. It's this color. It has, so that part we're going to try to integrate on the next build that we're going to do, so that it keeps that little spot. Again, sometimes compromises, they come and go, so you might have to do some changes and perhaps take it out. It all depends on how we go. So next, so let's take this apart a bit. This entire part is locked down by this build. So if we take this apart, and then we can take this, separate this part. This we might end up keeping. Again, we might see at the end of the process if we keep it or not, but this holds the ball joints that we want to use for the legs. But the key thing is, and this is something I may end up changing, since the separation between the ball joints and the main legs could end up being too short, we might have to replace this entire piece for separate ball joints with axles and the metal, and perhaps separators at the end. So we have to watch around and see, and this is something that we're going to go back, right? Okay, so we're going to take this apart and try to keep the main parts as much as possible. These arms I'm going to take down and take off. Why? Because they serve a purpose with the main chest area that was not modifiable. Oh, let me show you real quick what this build was in particular. So this build here was trying to replicate the lion face that's at the back of the build. It usually holds the ring of fire that Nezha has at the back. So it looks this way, right? I'm going to try to keep these as much as possible because it is a good build and I want to try to keep that. So again, take it apart with super care. Okay? And again, let's take this out, because I'm probably not going to end up using this particular same build. This is a cheeky part, and this is a pun. The main designer and one of the jokes about Nezha build when it was out is that the build itself had round buttocks, to say something. So of course I had to add round buttocks as well. So these are you can see them built here. I might have to keep that. Otherwise people might be mad if I change that. Okay. This is how you should build cockpits, right? I'll take this part so you can see. When I build cockpits, the body is taken care of. That's perfect. It's why I love this piece in particular, because it's the smallest way you can actually put a body, and it's covered almost entirely, leaving me only work to cover the face. So this is great. Now, what can we do is, since we're not going to be using a pilot or a cockpit, we have to fill this entire volume in build. And the most important part is I want to keep this ratchet joint. So the idea is to build something that will take this side, and I'll show you that part is quick. This part at the top, or replacing this part at the top, is usually what takes more time. Okay? So let's open this and open the cockpit. I'll take the minifigure out. It's a basic minifigure that I made. I tried to make the most Warframe operator looking figure. I even gave it it has an eye patch, just a detail. And let's take the cockpit off. Okay, this is the main piece that we're going to keep, and we're going to build from it, because this is the main thing that we want to keep, because it gives this particular piece I like, and these colors too, because they work the best with the build, right? But this ratchet feeling that you have here, it's perfect, because it allows you to pose it and also to give it strength. And the piece that I usually use to change this, let me take pieces out of here. So I have an entire box of this that is contained by ball joints on both sides and the ratchet joints. So we're going to try to work with this piece. So this piece is a female piece for this, and when you put it works great on two things, right? One, it attaches perfectly, and it's also pretty tough to move. It is ratchet. Okay, and since it's ratchet, you will get even more resistance than if you use the cockpit, because the cockpit is just a normal pin. So when you let me show you this real quick. When you put the pin here, it spins. It has no resistance at all. It works, but you have to work around that in order to get process. And then, so this way. With this, you have the main big backbone build. And as you can see, the size, it's pretty close to two-thirds of the cockpit, which indicates the big change, or the biggest advantage you can make. And that is, again, my small box of ball joints. I keep them all together because those are my favorite. Some of my favorite parts are ball joints. And let me get another one of these. Okay, so yeah, perfect. So by doing this, let me show you this way better. You're doing the entire build height of the cockpit just by doing. Let me hold it in a way that you can see it better. Okay, I hope you can see. So doing this at the side and just one pin connected to this, you'll be able to match the height of the cockpit. And doing it using pretty simple amount of pieces that are different from the ones you have. And so how do you attach it? Let's use some red colors for this. Most of the pieces I have, as you can see, I have them color blocked. That's how I find them useful, with the exception of special pieces. And this is something that works for me, but it works differently depending on the person that does this. Because, okay, I keep colors because I like working with colors a lot, but the thing, or the most important thing, is I separate special pieces. What do I consider special? Oh, I just dropped that box. I'll show you with another box. Okay, so real quick, let me show you. These are special pieces, okay? These are pieces that I use a lot. These are usually the side mounts pieces. So I consider this special pieces, that's why I keep them separate. What other pieces I consider special pieces? Well, these kind of pieces, and then, where are they? I don't see them. Oh, here they are. Okay. So these are two types of pieces I consider special. Why are they special? Because they are connectors. Two types of connection. And I keep them all the same type, so these basically are rods with studs, and these are the clip parts. I keep them separate because usually when I try to work, these are the pieces that I always try to find quicker, so that's why I usually separate them. Okay, back to the work. And what we're going to do is just find a 4x2 red block, not block, sorry, plate, 4x2. And this way, just put it here, and with this, you have the height and the width of the main cockpit, right? Now we have to work on the volume. But the main thing is, this part, you have the main area working. And you can even start doing things like putting these parts together, and you can even start attaching legs and see how they work. Right? I usually don't do that quite yet, but if you find that more comfortable, that's perfect. And put this right now. Okay, so we have this. Now we have to make volume, and there are many things that we want to work on. One of the things is, what can we do to add cover to the side? Remember that I made a build that was using this to make this effect. Sorry, it was like this actually, and it was given this particular cover to this particular area here. It was working like this, but it was not attached to any part of this, so it was pretty flimsy. It was just for showing, but not necessarily for working on. Okay? So let's start working step by step and adding volume, okay? So first, we could just put 1x2 plates and build up, but what happens to this? There are multiple ways you can work on this, and we're going to try a few of them today. So first, again, another type of piece I keep separate, which are the blocks with side pins. If we do this, we gain a pin at the bottom that we can use for to add volume in different ways. Let me give you an example of that. Let me find here. This is an example piece, not exactly the piece that you would use for this, but it would work. So if you use this, you can put a piece down here and you can add volume, right? It all depends on the type of volume you want to add and the type of shape you want to get. This worked great. The only problem with it is that you have a single pin to work on. So the part that you put here usually should not be too heavy, or it might fall off, or you might end up having problems with it. The other alternative that I have found that works great with this is bring this back. Let me see if I have enough. Sorry for the piece noise. This is an unintentional problem that could happen on the stream. So these parts, these are 1x1 side pins. If you put one on this side and you put the, I don't think I have this the 1x1 back, and I have another small pin. 1 second. Let me just find that, because I know I have it. Okay, I have a box here with more of those pieces, right? So let's search for 1x1 back. One of the main things you have to work on in your Lego collection is sorting, because most of the time, like a great amount of the time you're going to spend building is searching for pieces. The better organization that you have, the less time you're going to spend searching for pieces. And again, this is the biggest pain point, and this is why I cannot find a specific piece that I want to find. Okay, perhaps I can show you with this. This could work, the one that has 1x1. If you put here, then you would complete this loop and you will be able to attach things on the side with a 2 stud here, and you can actually do side building here. This is probably the take I'm going to go with, and the reason why you cannot do 2x2 on this particular build that I'm using is because here, if you cannot put up 2 pieces, it will clash with this. And if you put a single stud here, then it will not complete here. The space is too much, and there's no way to push this one back. You could try expanding this. What do I mean when I say expanding this? I'm going to use this piece real quick to show you. So if you do this and add a different layer, then you can start seeking and searching, and you see if you can do the 3 stud. But this separation does not allow for the 3 stud. It falls short. So you have to keep going, and then perhaps you can reach the 4 stud separation, which seems doable with a block. If you have this, you're able to complete this and put a 4 block on the side. But look at the volume. You have to work around and see if this is particularly what you want, and if this is the shape you want to achieve. Right now, for what I want, which is pretty small, and that build that allows me to sculpt better shapes, it doesn't work completely. So what I'm going to try to do right now is try to complete and find the one that goes on under that, which I just found another top. Great, because if I don't put it here later, I'm going to be badly finding this one. I have to find 2 of the back single sides. These pieces are not that old, so you might have trouble finding them if you don't find them in newer sets, but they're great because they allow you to sculpt in much better, much different build size that you were not able before this piece. So that's something good. Let me search for that piece. I don't think I have one here. We can work around that for now. Let me just search for I did have some of those here. Oh, I didn't. Also, clear boxes do help you find pieces without having to search too much of a search. But yeah, I don't think I have here, so I didn't bring it then. Just sad. I thought I did bring all my pieces, but I left some at my place, so that's fine. We'll work on showing you how to build the other parts. Okay, so by having this, my idea with this build, you can see it has muscles on the side of the chest, and these particular pieces could work great to give that shape. The only problem I see with these, you see this gap here, it might not end up being a problem because here's the chest piece, right? The chest part. The chest part, let me put this just to show you. If we build it this way, you might have this all almost covered. And again, if you put the top, sorry about that. You can see it almost completely works around this issue. So you have now almost the chest build, and with this particular shape built around this. Right now it's flimsy because I didn't find this, so I have to work on finding that part. But the main problem that comes around to this is now you have to work around this. It works for this particular piece, but now you have to work on getting this part built. And again, this is part where you put pieces together and see. Right now, it's too short. And you can see them this part should be a little bit more advanced. And why is that? Well, because you have to cover for the space that was on the original build. So it has to look and follow this line, you see? But to do that, you have to work around perhaps adding a bit, like, no, this could be a 3x2 block. And this is where experimentation comes and goes. This is the fun part, right? You can keep on the new build the arm attached, and that way you can build around things you want to get. But let me show you that real quick. So first, let's try with this, right? This 2x1 block, you put it, and let's take this out. This is something I have as a separation. I also forgot to bring a separator, I think. I don't have one with me. Oh, that's fine. I'll show you that. That's usually for not hurting my nails. Okay, so by adding that, we have the volume. You see? It fits perfectly. At the top, it continues the line, and it works at the front as well. So you have that. And if you put this on the side, it could work as well. But now you're facing a problem, which is filling this space, right? This empty space on the build, you have to work around. But here's another fun experiment. Remember, let me take out some pieces, because the cleaner space you have, the better you can see. If we take this apart and put a front block here, okay, now you have this. But the main problem with this is that it doesn't cover, or it takes more than the block that you would usually do with this. So that will create a problem. But this experimentation is part of the building process that we're going to work on here, and have to fill some voids. This is part of the main fun of working here. Another problem right now is using a single stud here, which could be a problem at the end, or it could be a solution. Let me explain you why. One stud wide, yeah, it's all a single joint to the piece, but if used correctly, you can turn it around, and you can give it a shape that you wouldn't usually get just by moving it around and turning it around. The problem is it would be a flimsy joint, and then you have to work around the fact that if you do that, I hope you can see it here, you can move it around and it will, but then you have to work on the fact that this joint at the top will be affected by it. But the same thing you can say about that with this. There are many ways we can work around that, and I think I have the solution for this. Okay, if we use the 2x2 block, it gives us better grip, but it creates a problem with this. So by using, instead of that, use 2 of the single blocks with the side mount, and then get a simple 1x2 block at the top. This creates more solutions to that problems. So basically you get this, and you're able now to build around on this space and perhaps do something like let me use now this piece won't work. So sorry about this. It's all about building. This is part of the process. But we can work and perhaps get a feel with a slope, a simpler slope could work. I have this piece right now. We can get a better one perhaps later. But for example, putting this slope here, as you can see, should allow for this to close completely. So we can continue to use the cockpit, the top that we use, and we just have to fill this space. And to fill the space, we can even go further, and since this is the pieces we're using, we can perhaps, oh no, this piece will be too long for that. So that's the advantage of testing things. Just go for it and see if they work or not. Okay, found this. This is the alternative I was talking about. This slope could work, and it's a good part, but you can also use this one. This is a 2x1 slope, normal slope, single block. If you put it here, it works, right? Perhaps, I hope you can see it. It works as a side fill. So now we could show this, and then it works. It basically close, and you're starting to get the shape that we want to get. This is by no means the final shape that we're going to get. This is a process that usually takes more time than I would like to admit. It's just trying to get the right shape, correct? So, for example, there's a piece that I know that would work right here because you can add a bit more on the top and it has a better shape. I don't think I have it here on this. And this particularly red block. Let me get another red block. Tray. Okay, this is a smaller one. Perhaps it has a shape the one that I want. Okay. Usually I know where my pieces are. With time, you usually find that. So this particular piece, this is a 2x2. I want to call it slope with 2 studs at the top, and it would work great here because it has a more. This one is too straight. This one has like a shape that resembles more of a muzzle, and it has the 2 slopes that we can work around later. So we put it here at the top. You can see that at the start it does give a better look. And if you go further, and actually found the second piece where I actually want to take the other side. We could try this piece as well. This will be interesting because it's a 3x2 slope with a, I like to call two future stud protector, because it goes around the next two studs that covers, and so you have to work around that. Okay, you see, it covers two of the studs. Okay, so let's try with just a plain 2x1 clean stud. Okay, if you put it this way, you can see it adds volumes and adds shape. So it could work as a replacement part for this. And honestly, I like it better than this because it gives you more shapes in general. But again, that's depending on what you want to build and how you build things. Another thing that we can use to build this space is, you see that we have this space here, and we have negative blocks that we can put around. And here's what I would like to try around and build. If we get, this is usually what I keep them separate. Back to these pieces. You can try with a piece with a different color and then changing when you're finalizing the build. But you can try just test them with different colors and see if the idea works. So my idea was to put this here, and I'll tell you why it doesn't work exactly that way. Okay? Because I'm using 2x1 studs that are curved. I hope you can see them. This curve at the top, when you try to put or build them that way, it won't allow for this to happen, because it's going to take part of this top build when it curves. So there is the workaround for this. Usually what you do is you find 1x1 round studs, and if you put them at the top, usually that works to fill that void and allows you to, depending on the amount of curvature that you have, could allow for this to happen, but I don't think that's going to work in this. Let me try around and test. Okay, so I did this, go to the top. So it does barely make that happen. As you can see, the new, hope you can see, okay, they're at the bottom here. They should allow for this to be clipped now. Let me take this entire piece so I can show you better with that. So I hope you can see it. So by doing this, you can clip this now. And this part you can use to fill in different ways. And going back here, you can see what I mean when working with fill. Now you can put around things, we can work around, and perhaps this might not be the best piece, because we could end up using a different piece like this instead. We can end up using a side 2x1, a side stud piece. So let's go back and let me show you this. By removing this, you can try this. And again, now you're able to have two studs that you can use something to fill. Perhaps this might be the end up being the correct solution for this problem. And as an example, let me put this here. Now you're filling the space, correct? This might not be the end, because we might end up using two slopes or a 2x1 slope here. That way it could fill this gap better. We could work with that. That's a possible solution for this. But right now we're working on maintaining and giving back the shape, which could work. You can see that I'm not using this space. This is important. When working around this, usually the top cover of the cockpit, you could attach the neck to this. So we have to work around a way to getting this or at least this part, working on this build. Okay? Let me take this 2x1 slope, this one, and put it here to show and see if it works. Could work. I think it goes at the end of the clip, and you can see the void or the space is filled, and it looks like volume. So it's gonna be an interesting idea to work around. And we can, okay, so let me see if I can find another piece that I have an idea to work on this. And keep filling the space, because that's basically you're sculpting with this. So you have to get around and finding pieces that works for the purpose you want. I have an idea of a piece that may work. It's a 2x1 plate with a small extension, usually used for things like, I think they were used for rails. Let me see if I can find that piece. Okay. By the way, how are you? Let me know on the chat. Do you like how this is going? You want me to speak louder? Do you want me to go slower? You want me to explain something else? Do you see well or well enough what I'm showing? Please let me know in the chat. So, let me try searching for that piece in the red lines. Not sure which one. I know I have that piece. That's another important thing you have to work around. Seeing if you have the piece, you have to know your piece stacked pretty well. Okay, here it is. This is the piece I'm referring to. You see that it's a 2x1, but it has an extension. So let's take this small cover at the top. This one I usually like a lot because it's a curve and it gives like cover for one additional step. So if you put here this at the bottom, sorry, you see that it covers more. And if you proceed to put this at the top, there's more space filled, and you can perfectly work around this. Okay, and see how the shape of the chest is taking form. Let's go a bit further, and let me add a leg and see how that works around. Okay, so I noticed that on the arm side, it's taken up, it looks good. It has a correct shape. So shape-wise, we're getting a good work done here. You see it? And this is good. We're advancing actually much better when you take more pieces on the side. They have more space to show things. Okay. You can see it's taking shape now. And we're almost done with one side. The only thing that worries me is this part, this one here, is attached to a single stub. So we might change that in the future, but for now it works. It gives the shape that I'm looking for, which is, you can see. But remember that we were talking about this small blue piece at the side, how we can add that. That's why I have another idea of what might could work, and I'll show you that real quick. And it involves changing this piece altogether for another that could give us a shape that we want, but it has problems on itself. And let me explain you why. Because let me find the piece first, and then we'll work on that. Okay, let's see. Okay, I have this piece here. I think I have that here. But I'll keep looking at it. And again, this is the most tedious part about building. You have to be able to remember where the pieces you want to use are. And usually that's why I use transparent boxes, because it allows me to watch around and give it a quick look and see if the piece I want to use is actually there. I don't think it's there. And I don't think I can find one quick. Okay, that's fine. I'll show you a quick trick that I can use for these occasions, right? So, the piece I want to do is a slope up. Yes, that's a problem with using small ball joints. You can change what you want to use, and there are many ways to attach to the arms. But I found out the hard way most of the time that if I want to use the cockpit, this is usually the piece I have to work around. So that's why I've worked around using arms with these joints as the shoulder. What I usually do is I add pieces that add restriction. As you can see, this part here, it fits with the chest. So that part itself, it's doing some friction that works around it. That if you want to move it, the entire chest is blocking or opposing into it. So you have to work giving strength to the joints using pieces as side support. You can also build around, for example, here. Let me show you this real quick. So you have this, and you also can put a slope on here, right? How can this work? Depending on the position of this, you can use this to add strength to the articulation. Usually that's what I can work around here. And this part will provide support to the arm. And it is an extension. It takes away from certain posability, but like everything in life, you're given and taking. You have to figure out if you want to work with bigger joints for bigger weapons. You have to build around that, and you can do that with this build pretty easy. You can make that change, because all you have to do is take this part here, and there are many ways you can do joints, and I'll show you real quick some alternatives. Okay, so you can go around and replace that for a big ball joint here, and that would be pretty simple to demonstrate. You would be adding this to this, and that way you would have this. The problem is you are adding two blocks to the side. So you have to make around the idea that your chest is going to be wider. Usually when you're designing something that will carry bigger weapons, bigger chest is not a problem, that's fine. But if you want extra strength, there are ways to work around that as well. And these ratchet joints do the work for that. For example, you can end up putting this there, and you would end up having even more strength, and you can actually move the arms to the side, to the front and to the back, which would add more posability. But these are even bigger. If you want to add the ratchet joint that goes on the other side, this one, then you are going to go for a much bigger arm and chest build, right? And you also have to consider that when you do this, you have to put restrictions here on this piece if you want to be able to turn the arm, because if you don't have anything at the top forcing it down, then when you try to turn the arm, it will remove the piece. So there are gives and takes on doing that. Again, I tend to go more on the single ball joints, the small ball joints, because I love this piece to death, and I learned to work around this, which is one of the reasons why my builds are not arm heavy. They usually, let me give you an example, and it's an example using a build that I already have. Okay, so this build, This build, it has a ball joint here at the joint, and you can see the arm itself is not that heavy. It is a very small build. It doesn't have that many pieces, and it allows it to carry that weapon, and the weight of the ball joint does keep it down. But you have to know the limitations of working with ball joints to do that. That's a test and lot of work, and do it. Test the small ball joint, and if it falls short, work around moving that. There are ways to do the big ball joint with a single 2x1 stud, and I'll show you that real quick. But let's cheat a little. This is the piece I want to use to test. I'll take it from this build and I'll give it back, I swear. If not, I'll find it from the piece later and replace it. So, with this piece, let me show you this, and then I'll go back to show you how to use the big 2x1 ball joint to be used as a shoulder. So with this, you actually have a stud that you can fill here. And if I find this, which is the color that I love this color, and you could just put a 2x1 here, and if you go down here, if we add it here, then bam, we actually have this color that we want here. And this is one of the things I showed you before. Sometimes it's a compromise. It works, it has the color that you want, but the shape is not perfect. What do? Right? There are other words around this as well. So we can test around the piece that we were using before, which is this one. If you put it down and then put it here, see how the shape goes. See if you like the shape that it has, right? It's thicker, and you can fill this part super easy. And you can actually use that to experiment with different things. And I'll show you real quick about the experiments I mean. What do I mean by experiments? Okay, so these are 1x1 tooth piece, right? If you put it here, now you're having a forward shape. Let's try and see how that works, right? It looks too much. It goes over this part, but it doesn't work that way, or at least for me. But if you go down with this way, if you put it here, you actually end up filling more of that space, as you can see. So this that was a workaround, ends up filling more space and gives like a continuation of the shape. That works this way. So I might end up using this on the final build. The thing is, now this part has too much volume, right? And what's the issue you say with that? The issue is that now it clicks with the arm this way. So if you close the arm and it goes to the position that it should go, we can see that it might not end up working. Or we might just do a simple stud, a simple 1x2 plate with no studs at the top. Doesn't look great, right? That's part of the thing. But here's a quick tip. Something that I like about sometimes those are small accidents. We were using a single stud, but it's a void stud. And those pins at the middle could work with that. So if we put it actually on the middle, not on one of the front or end pins, we end up with it being a bit further in the back, which could work on the shape side. And for me, it kind of does a trick, right? I would have to build more to see if that's the shape I want to keep. But something is a bit off, and perhaps this could be the difference, right? If I want to make it look wider, can just put a slope, and the slope now gives additional set of volume to the piece. But it still looks like, I don't know, there's something that's bothering me on that particular build, and I might not end up using it. But it gives you an idea of what is to sculpt with this. This is why I say sometimes we're doing all that work just to add this color here. Sometimes it doesn't pay off, so you have to take it all off, okay? And that's one of the compromises you take when you're building stuff. Right, for now, let's do this. Let's keep this side as it is, and then let's keep this side simple, with a simple stud here. Okay? And we'll work around. This is what we had before, which was simple. And perhaps just add this. See that the volume difference, the volume is way different. This one is much thicker. It's more detailed, it covers more area. It has a shape that I like, but it's not quite. I actually like this more because it looks thinner, but it gives a better overall shape to the chest because it's not too wide. This is, to me, too wide, but it's the details that we want. So we might end up not using it. For now, let's keep it. Let's keep working on it. And let me show you what I promised to show you before. Let me just put some of these pieces here. Try not to step on pieces that I dropped before. So I'm just taking them out real quick. Give me 1 minute. I know this is not ideal, but if I roll around them or if I step on them, I may end up breaking pieces. And these are the clip pieces. These break super easy. So I really don't want to break this kind of pieces. And I know, that's one of the things I have to keep working on getting pieces without dropping them. Because then I'll end up losing time doing this. Okay, so all the pieces are collected. Now let's show you, perhaps with this. Okay, let me bring back this part. I see when they get stuck here and I have to pull them a bit stronger. Now I'll just show you. Give me 1 second. Okay, let me bring this. Let me bring also this part. And also let me search for, I think this one has it. And we might end up working with this. No, this doesn't have it. But, oh, here. This is perfect. Okay. So what we might need to work on doing a 2x1 shoulder with a big ball joint is not using this piece altogether. This piece will not work for you. What you could do, and this is the interesting part, is you can use a 2x1 block with a cross on it, or that axis on it. And here's my recommendation. You can work on using a single a single axle at the bottom, but I would recommend to use a 3 long. This is a 3 long, or what I call a 3 long axle. And I'll show you real quick why. Because right now this is at the end, so you use this, and then you use a spear. And this is what you get, right? We might use a separator just to fill the gap. And we might have to use, you can use perhaps a single one like this, but you might end up using 2 separators. Because why 2? Or just work with 1. but I usually would recommend going 2. And this is what it would work. Okay, this is how it would work. It would work this way. So you would mount it this on the side of the belt, and it could work as intended. And you would have an arm joint and a shoulder that uses a single stud width, but you also have a big ball joint at the shoulder. There are a few things that I would consider a problem with this. Usually you have to still use the big receptor, so the arm has to be thick at the bottom. You have more friction, yes you do, but it also means that you can take this entire piece apart. So you have to work on the concept that it's not an entire piece, and it has some issues with weakness. So that's one thing that I would consider with this, and that's what I would consider a problem with it. An alternative that you can use, let me show you this, more of these pieces. I'm just going to take a few boxes out of here because otherwise I might end up making a disaster, and that's not what I want. Okay? Give me 1 second. Oh, we're good. So, what do I mean by single joint? Okay. This is what I consider a single axe joint. Okay? This is a shorter piece, it's still an axis, so it's still a cross. But the problem that you'll face with that is this. If you use it here, and you put the ball joint here, it's too attached to the piece. So as soon as you try to turn it in a different way, it restricts your mobility. It can work up and down, fine, but if you try to move it forward, you end up taking or making the separation because you do this. I hope you can see that. Here, perhaps you can see. You end up forcing the pin out of the ball joint if you use a single approach. So it could work, yes. It's more attached, but this is the problem you face. So this is why I would recommend, actually, and I think I have more separators here, and perhaps a different color so I can show you. I would recommend to do this. Use that 3 stud, make sure it goes to the bottom, put the 2 separators, and then you put the ball joint. You're actually making a piece that will work better, and it works much better, and you have more space to put things around this part and move it around. So this could work. Okay? It's just, for me, if I were building a top-heavy mech, yes, I would do that, 100%. But this is not what I'm actually going for right now. The arm builds on this particular build are not that heavy, and it's just mostly as a thick arm. It has a lot of details and some build assembled to it, but it's not too heavy, so it works. I'll show you a problem that actually is bigger with this build. Okay, so let's return this to the way it was and continue. Let's go back and put this, because I honestly don't like how it looks. So let's go around and just keep it simple with this white. We could, in fact, this is not exact as it was in the build, but perhaps what we could do to work around the issue of the color here is, instead of using a single plate from the red, we can just work around using a plate from this color. And you have the shape that I like, and also have the color that I like. it is not quite on the correct position, because usually it is below a color, so that might not work. But we can that is a small detail that we can worry about later. Right now we have to give it the main shape. Okay, and now I feel the shape itself, it's working, so we can go to the next step, which would be the neck. Okay, I'll just put this lock here because I like the way it looks, and I'll just lock this back here. This one locks these two pieces and they won't be able to separate. And in general, I'm happy with the shape. I still have to fill it a bit more, but as an overall, I like it. So this is the next interesting part. These are top parts that we have to put at the top in some way or another, because they actually do this. They fill this part, right? But you can see the main issue here, or what I thought would be a main issue is it clips, but this is the point of resistance, but it's too far in the back. We could build around the back and put a clip like it was here to work around that issue, like this, but put it for the back and it could work. But I also have a single stud circle here as a separator that I added as a filler, or as it was before. I might not need it now. So if I remove that, you can see, perhaps I can show it. It doesn't have the stud there, right? But that works as a separator. So if everything is correct now, it should align better now. It should close by. Let me see if we can show it to you there. Here. It closes and it covers here, but it closes pretty straightforward and it keeps the shape, right? But if I want to move it back, further back, we might end up actually having to push this piece a bit further at the top, at the front. And let me show you what I mean. So let's take this out. And let's remove these two clips. And add a single, perhaps even the green part, we can use it as a color here, as a separator. And perhaps that way we had the color that we wanted. So add the two single studs there, single clips, and put it here. Now, the shape remains cool. You have more space, leave space to work around at the back here. And in here, it actually still has issues. It doesn't close correctly. And to work around that, again, this is a test. We add a stud to test and see if it works. And then put it here. And then we'll test it around and see if it works as we want to. It's still too far. But again, on the build that I had before, I had a single stud as a separator, to add volume. If I take it out, it looks this way. Let's see if that's enough to get the look that we want. It does kind of look the way we want it, right? It has the correct inclination. It looks correct at the top, on the front, on the top, at the side. It's close enough here. So we might end up using this. But as an experiment, let me add it to the back. And the best way to do that is to add a 4x1 here. This will add volume to both parts of the back. And it actually works with the separator that I had before. But just by removing a single one, let me see. It still has the single here, and it completes the shape, so it could work around that. Okay, fine. But that's not the piece that worries me. So what worries me is, this is the neck, okay? So the neck worked this way. This functioned as like the neck muscle here, but it was in red. It was just something that I added to our volume. And this part was the actual piece that was connecting the neck to the main body, which was a claw. I think it was an extra arm. It was a piece used. It's a clip. I call that clip with a pin. This is what we use as fingers. And two single circle studs with the hole in the middle. And this would allow the neck, or this part from the head, to connect. And this is how I attached it to the body, correct? So I have to see if we're going to keep using this method to connect it to the body, or perhaps use a different method altogether. And one method that could work, since all we need is a pen, we could work around. Let's see the volume. It has to be like around here to add the correct volume. So it would have to be here, like two studs at top, for it to give enough leeway for the head to be. Okay, this is fine. Let's use this piece as a test, and let's work around it. Okay, so find a 2x2 singles plate. Put this and put this. Okay, this is a single substitute that we can use as a test. And if we put it here, and we put it here, the back. Now we have the neck itself attached to the main body, and I think it might be the correct height. So the best way would be to test with the head. So we add the head. Right now, as I can see, it doesn't attach. Why? Because these pieces at the back that were before are clashing with the side mount. So as it is, it will not work. If we add a single stud at the top, that might work, but might not have the look that we want. Okay? And again, we still have the crush. I cannot push it further than this because of this. The red stud is clashing with the single slope here. So that will not work. So how we work around that? Oh, I just push it a bit further. It pushed this piece further, and then now it moves. The main issue I have with this is that it's too flimsy. Look, the head is too heavy for that. So if it's at the front like this, usually won't have that problem, and will sit around tight. But as soon as you slightly move to the back, it will crash. So you can work around adding resistance to this piece, and that might work. Or we can change that altogether. This is the interesting part, because I could also actually work on a way to make the neck move to the sides. Right now, I just moved to the top and the side on the connection with the stud. But if I work, let me try to test it. I think this piece would work because I don't think I can have a single stud, a single pin on both ends. Okay, this could work as a neck piece. And again, being a ball joint, you have the flexibility to do whatever you want. And you might be asking then, but how are we going to connect the pin, this connection to the base, right? The best way to do that, wherever I have a piece to show you that. I think I have, the quickest I can find is in gold, and that will allow me to show you that. It's not the correct color, but it's just test and see how it works. And I think that's the easiest one I can remember having. Okay, I do. That's correct. So one of these, the cone shape piece fits perfectly here on the pin. So now you have the connection to actually do this. And if we take this apart, you can actually go ahead and you have a neck that's attached to a bolt joint. It has more friction than this has, and it could end up working better. This is actually what I did to separate the lux as a neck, or something similar to this. It's actually longer because of the jack. So I have to work with a longer connection than this, but this might be enough for this. So let's attach it back here and test it with the ball joint as a neck. And as insurance, let me put this, which is, here's an interesting thing. To secure this part here, let me show you around. To secure this, I'll have to go with a 4x1 piece here. But the slope that we put on this side before, with this slope, will stop that. So we might have to take that slope out. Let me just take the arm out. Take the slope out. But in doing so, I can do this. Let me see if I can show you this real quick. I can put in and secure that part there. So the ball joint here is secured to the main body by this piece. And to secure the ball joint, we need another 2x2 to secure it there. So let me see around. Where can I find a 2x2 thick? Here I have one. Another one of this. And just put it here. Correct? So this part is secure, this part is secure. And if we go around and just do you can change the color of this piece later. Put a single pin here, and then put back the slope here. You can test around. You can actually, from the width of it, you can actually put a single stud, a single 1x2 plate stud here, and it would add even more volume here. This. Oh, it fell. So by adding this here, we have even more volume here to the front, but now it doesn't go. So that wouldn't work. Again, this is trial and error. You have to be able to test that. Okay. We might have to add volume in a different way in the future. We'll check that. We might actually end up using this, because in this particular case, it might work better than this single slope. So let's go back and test. Start the back here, and then this slope. We'll put it here. It doesn't clash with this piece, so, but there's a void here we have to fill. But that void might be filled by the arm, so you might not need actually to fill it. So that part is not necessarily complete. But here you can fill with whatever you want, because that's the beauty of having an empty stud there. You can put many things. For example, if you wanted to, you can put either a single blank 1x1 plate or a single 1x1 cheese loaf. And if we do the cheese loaf here, we can test around. For example, if I put it this way, cheese loaf is facing downwards. It feels better, and it kind of works. So I might end up keeping that. If I put the arm again, works great. The neck is working as intended. It actually works better because it allows it to turn, but that's on the pin connection, and it allows it to go a bit further and backwards and even sideways. So we actually replaced the neck connection for a even better neck connection, in my opinion. Correct? And as you can see, it's working, or the shape is working correctly, and it's getting the shape as we want it to, which is very perfect right now. Because now let's try to move the rest of the pieces that we were using before and replicate what we did. And then we go ahead. This was backwards. That's the main difference. It was, and this is something that I'll show you why it could be a big problem for the build in a minute. So now let's make sure that this is here. So the neck itself is attached. Let's put this here, and I need a single 1x3 block, and then the slope that is not complete piece. I might do that off camera, but the thing is, you have to replicate the work that you did on this side to fit on this. So we have to work on filling this gap here with the process I showed you, and we still have to fill this gap, the gap here, which could be even easier, and I'll show you why. We use a single 2x1 here. That's on par with this. So if we go ahead, for example, put a 3x2, you're even locking the middle piece with this. Now all you have to do is fill and play around with that. We can go many ways to fill this space, and we can fill it in a way that allows us to have pieces inside that we can work around. And for example, if we go, and let's do this. It's the same piece that we used before. It's a test piece. We can change the color, or if it's hidden, there's no problem keeping this color. So we added a single side and added to the bottom here, and we can go ahead and do this. We remove the chest again. We put it here, right? It fills the gap here, and you can close it around here. And what it gives you is, now you have the ability to add clips at this part. And we can work on many ways with that. For example, remember the neck pieces that I was using before, the red arms? We can put them here, and when we close this, the pins will be inside. And from the inside of the head, you have that to add lever, and perhaps you can use that to give shape. You might end up not using that, but it's an interesting thought to have that piece there, because it will allow you to, for example, let me show you another of the special pieces drawer. This is the another special piece drawer I have. Usually it's pins and connections and little things. For example, this lightsaber piece, with the pin that we have here, you can go ahead. Now it won't work. Why? Because on this side it's clashing. But if you put it back, further back, then you have no problem. Then you have this lightsaber piece here working as a neck extension for the mech, like this muscle here, this one. And you're using that and you can see it on the further here on the neck. Let me see if you can see it. It's there. Again, not the end procedure, but it's something you can work around, and perhaps it might not work on that end, and it's too much work there. That's fine. Just fill the space with regular pens. You can work on that. And for example, I'm using just another 2 single pins. Why am I using the single pins? Because I have tons of them, like lots of them. So I don't mind using them to fill. And that works again, filling this space, and you still have this space to fill, but you can work around it with many pieces that could be useful. And I have an idea of one that could actually work, but I don't know where I can find it or where I put it. Actually, don't know if I even have it here. Interesting. Let me show you. And some pieces fell down. That happens. That's normal. Working as intended, right? Okay, don't have that piece that I want to show you, but we can make it. How we can make it? It's a block with this part coming out of it. It's integrated. I don't have it integrated, or I can find it right now. But again, we're testing, so we can make one just by adding 1 stud at the top, 1 stud at the bottom. It has a 3 stud white now. And if we put it here, now under the neck, you have those connections to work around. And you can do the same thing we did with the red pins, but without the red arms, right? They can still work as fillers, and you can do tons of work with them. Or you can even add, I had this as a break in front of the other neck. You can add it here at the bottom, and you can add more colors or pieces to work around the neck, around that part, correct? This is the interesting part. You just basically made, or we basically remade what we had in the cockpit here without using any additional, just by testing. And we ended up with a build that's more stable in some parts. It has a better neck, right? And it's all about rebuilding. From this part on, it's just finding the pieces that I use on this side, to use on this side, and replicate. Here's what I'm worried about, or what I need to work on, which might be complicated, but perhaps not that much. Okay? Remember the lion face that we had in the back? It was designed to be used with studs on the outside, which is what we had here, correct? How are we going to move the studs to be the opposite side and keep the lion head? That will be interesting on its own. So these parts, they actually can go here with the same. I think they were here, and they were like teeth that were pointing out of the build. So that part you can keep having, and that's fine. That's not a problem. But how do you put a clip that's a stud at the bottom and a stud at the top form? How can I work on that? That's going to be interesting. And also how we're going to do that the same to be able to do this with this build. How we're going to put this. I usually put a 2x1 empty clip part, and this is how I'm probably going to be thinking on how to build now. Because it has to be here, it has to go here, and this piece has to be located around here to complete the effect of the line mouth that's on the back. See, that's what I have to work on now. And it's probably going to be the most complicated part of changing the cockpit to a non-cockpit, because the cockpit has studs on the back side, has studs on the front with the cockpit top, but it doesn't have any on the side, which is the improvement that this has. So let me think real quick. So it has pins. It's something that we can use in our favor. It has pins at the back. We could use that, or we can just simply turn this piece around. It doesn't have the complete grip I want. It's looser than I would like to. So I don't know if that would work. Could work. Could be flimsy, but could work. Or I'm thinking how to put the clip too. I have no idea how to probably do that. Or do I? I'm thinking how can I do that? And let me get around help from two friends, or two type of pieces that could be the key. Let me get around the blocks with pins on the side, or perhaps we could work with, and this is an interesting part. I could show you a technique that could be kind of useful for you. And pins. Let me show you what I mean by that. So this too could provide a thing. And this is how I mean they could work on that. This is an interesting technique. If you did this with a single stud pin at the top and a connection at the bottom, if you use that on a completely whole block, you can actually make this happen. And that could allows us to do this. But it has too much volume, perhaps way too much, and might not be the piece that we want to use. But we fix the issue of the clip, and we can end up doing something very similar to the back end. We could turn back that, and we could use here. Let me put this here because I want to use this to add volume later. This 2 side pin, so that will work as intended. And let me add again pins just to fill the volume here. Why am I doing this? I'll show you real quick. Now this piece is too long. Okay. Basically what you're doing here is you're locking these parts. These parts won't move now if you put them here. They are locked in place. But we still have to find a solution how to put this at the bottom, at the top. Another solution that could come handy, I'm thinking, because this solution works, but I will have to add it to this height, but this volume to add the face, or to go to the top, so it won't work. So I'm thinking a different solution that could work there. Which solution could do that? It might be more simple than I imagined. Could be that simple. I think it is that simple. We're troubled by adding the spin here. We might not even have to do that. And I'll show you why. I have to find, let me take this here. And let me get the pieces that I just got, which are the single, the clips. So I have to find a 2x1, like this, with a single clip. If I find this piece, if I put it here, perhaps not that far, but perhaps closer, like this. We still keep this, which will be like the teeth part, and the mouth of the lion is attached. We just didn't add the clip, or didn't attach it to the bottom, we just added to the part of the main body. But we still have to fix on getting this up. And that, my friends, can perhaps, doing the solution that we proposed before, could be the answer. So let me add volume to this, because right now as it clips, it doesn't attach or give it enough, it's not further enough to access this pin. So we put it here, and then we put it here, and then we have a pin. But then we have faced the problem that perhaps it's too short, too tight. We can perhaps work around that. Remember the two pieces that I used for the neck, the two single pieces? If we add them here at the bottom, we might be having enough volume to do that. So the lion face attached to the back. And we have enough pieces here in the back that we can work around and setting up the pieces that connect to the fire ring. Because we'll connect the fire ring through these pins that we just added to the bottom of the ring. And I used to use, or the piece I used for that was this before. This is a piece that fell off. It has like golden arms at the top, and this was what was attached to that. How we can fix that? Simple. We just add them here. So the pieces were here, and perhaps now put them this way. And let's see how the ring of fire attaches. This is how the build end up looking. I just basically move it, the two pins, and put them here, and see if the fire ring attaches. It's too short. It doesn't attach itself very well, but that could end up working on the advantage, because if the face moves, the jaw of the lion now moves, you can actually try to pin it. Let's remove the separator that was adding volume. If we add it this way, perhaps we can pin it. And let me see if I can make that work. Okay, if I pin it here, the arms attach. It's pinned this way. Let's add the flame. And the teeth, I think it's because it's a bit sideways. It's not straight. And that. And now, by doing this, the fire ring is attached to the back of Nezha. And we have the fire ring here. And it still has like the arms that hold it. And now the face is holding it with the maw, and if you look at it on the front, it has the fire circle at the back. I still have to work on filling spaces, but I'll show you how it looks now that we added tons of the completion, or what we made with that. And look how it looks now. So we basically replaced the chest piece with a new build that we've made. We fixed or added changes to the neck. So the neck now is more flexible. The fire ring at the back is attached. All we have to do is add the pom-poms at the bottom again. The buttocks. You can keep adding them here. Perhaps this piece is not necessary anymore. It was separated. So we'll close this a bit and see if it works. If it doesn't work, we'll take it out. We might not need the arms anymore. So take the arms out. Just put it here. So you still have the buttocks. We might change this white piece for a single red that just goes straight. But yeah, basically we replace Nezha's chest piece that was this with a piece that we built. I still have to work on it a bit, but overall the main connections are all there. The main shape I wanted to achieve is there. I just have to work on the details. And this is how we replace that. It took us a little while to do, about an hour and 40 minutes to do, and also spoke about other things. And again, I still have to work on getting many of the pieces correct and the correct color, and add them, finalize the shape, add more details if I wanted to. But in general, it looks great. I like how it looks, and it will allow me to work on getting builds now without this cockpit, and perhaps use these type of cockpits that are moved into new builds, which is fine. And it's a workaround on getting pieces that are rare, like this one, to use on further builds without having to compromise on the original design, which I don't want to take this design apart because it's one of my favorite ones I've made, and the drawing itself is great. So I think this is the end of the stream. What did you think? Let me know in the comments. And again, to all the people that have joined on the stream, send me a direct message on either of my social networks, and I'll give you the link to download instructions for the Nezha Prime, the first build I made of Nezha Prime. And if you have questions, just let me know, and I'll help you change it. You can check the VOD of this stream on Twitch, or I also made a YouTube channel called Pixelman Crazy. You can search for it. It will also have the VODs if you want to access them there as well. So I hope you have fun with me. Again, my Twitch stream schedule will be Wednesdays and Saturdays at 6 p.m. Central. But you can check the videos later, again, on both platforms I told you before. And you can contact me on my social networks on Instagram and Twitter. You'll be able to reach me there. And thanks. This was fun. Again, this was not complete, but it's good enough to give you an idea of what we can do. And the plan for Wednesday next week is interesting. We'll start a build from scratch. Wednesday probably will start in design and get the shape, colors that we want to make, and we'll start building properly on Saturday. Perhaps we can go start building on Wednesday, but pretty sure we'll start the drawing and taking signs, and I'll be taking feedback from you, and we'll have the idea, and we'll start building on Saturday the new build. This will be entirely made for Twitch. And as a special thanks to my followers, we're building, or the idea I want to make is, I want to build a new Joker. So we'll work. Joker is one of my builds that I've loved a lot. It uses tons of colors. So we'll start from scratch and we'll build a new Joker from the drawing board to the complete build. It might take us a few sessions. That's fine. We'll work from scratch. We'll decide if we go with a cockpit build, or if we go with a non-cockpit build like this Nezha has. Okay. So this is the main this is the goodbye. Thank you very much for joining. Hope you have a great weekend. Again, contact me on the social networks if you have any questions, and let me know on a comment here or any of the social networks or even YouTube if you had fun. Thanks, Cobalt. Thanks for the comment. And again, if you have questions of any of my mocks, just let me know and we can talk them on the stream. Have a nice weekend and bye.